So I just watched 846, the new comedy special by Dave Chappelle. Truth be told, it's actually anything but a comedy special. It's a very interesting watch because it's literally 27 minutes of Dave Chappelle expressing anger over what's currently going on in the country and how he trusts where things currently are. It's a compelling watch, if I'm being honest with you. It's one that's interesting because he starts off by saying nobody wants to hear what Dave Chappelle has to say. Like when Don Lemon on CNN comes out and says, "Oh, like, why aren't these celebrities saying something?" Chappelle's like, "Why do you want to hear from me?" Well, I think he kind of contradicts his own statement later on when he's like, "Well, you guys trust me. And all the institutions that we're meant to trust, we don't trust." Which is a very compelling argument and a very interesting argument to make because that is part of what happens with being a celebrity. People look to you for having, well, the answers. They look to you for having a warm thing to say or a trusting thing to say. And in these particular times, over this particular situation with George Floyd, it really isn't about what celebrities are saying, because I think a lot of them, especially the other day with that particular take responsibility commercial, that was one of the most cringe inducing things I've ever seen in my entire life, and I lost a massive amount of respect for quite literally everybody involved in that, especially Aaron Paul. I mean, I understand their point for doing that kind of stuff, and like I understand Dave Chappelle's point for making this comedy special an unrefined comedy special, all about trying to send a message. It was performance art, wrapped around maybe two or three jokes about Candace Owen, which I'm not going to lie, I've hated her for 4 years. I hated her before it was cool because I saw exactly what kind of person she was when she had created a doxing website for children. I'm not making that up either. Go and look up Social Autopsy and her entire plan to get you to anonymously snitch on your friends for saying problematic things, and in the process of that, also dox them, which would then go on to an online database that anybody could search. That was her plan when she was still a liberal. Then she found out that grifting for the right, well, that just paid a lot more money. And that's kind of a lot of what he talked about here, was just, especially when it came to her, was there's a lot of disdain, a lot of hatred for Candace Owens. And he brought up, obviously, the situations with Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman and that whole situation, as well as Michael Brown, and how that became the story. And especially now talking about George Floyd. And it was definitely something that was hit personal to him. Because, I mean, obviously there's, black men in America, they experience things different than someone like me. That's 100% accurate. I truly believe that. And his way of expressing himself here, because of how it hit home with him, 8:46 a.m. is when he was born. So the 8:46 kind of resonated. And, it's just something that I think he needed to get out of his system. And I think that's kind of what a lot of people are experiencing right now. It kind of felt like 8:46 to me was just a cathartic release on Netflix's dime. And I'm not knocking that, because Netflix has been pushing this kind of comedy with, Hannah Gadsby, Nanette, and then I think her new one, Douglas, or whatever it's called. It's very much performative art that is designed to be funny, although Chappelle comes at it from this pure, unbridled rage perspective, which I think is refreshing, to be honest with you. He's always kind of been like that, but this wasn't holding back. Whereas Hannah Gadsby is just not funny. Nothing about her is funny to me, I'm sorry. Maybe it's because of the approach. Maybe it's because in this day and age, we're not looking for that subtle, "oh, me? Oh, well, oh," approach, but you want something raw and authentic. And that's what 8:46 was. It was raw. It was authentic. It was something that I think a lot of people are going to watch. In fact, it's number 2 on trending right now on YouTube. It's I think 4.4 million views in less than 24 hours. It's resonating with a lot of people. This is something that I think Netflix was probably not planning on shooting a week ago and then releasing today or yesterday. I mean, they shot it very quick. You can tell they just kind of put it together. I think they're going to refine the edit a bit more before putting it up on Netflix itself. But they chose to put this out right now. And I think it's a good move to put it out right now. I think when you have celebrities that speak on the subject matter, oftentimes it's either in sound bites or tweets or social media posts or Instagram stories, where it's all the same cookie cutter nonsense, and it really is. It's just cookie cutter. Some organization came to you, said, "Hey, would you be willing to do this?" And you go, "Yeah, okay, cool. This is me doing my part." But Chappelle gets out there and he does something that comes from, well, the heart, and comes from an internal rage, something that like Aaron Paul and Kristen Bell and Sarah Paulson and all those people from that take responsibility are never going to understand. And that is kind of how we as a society learn, is we learn from listening to people who've had those experiences. And as a result of that, it does help us better understand their pain and their anger. When we watch the mainstream media, the thing is, the mainstream media will only show us one side of the coin, one side of the equation. And I've covered a lot of these particular shootings in the past, and I try to look for as much information as I can, and it's never squeaky clean, and it's never as cut and dry as either side makes it out to be. It's always going to be a mess, but that is the reality of everything. Everything is a mess. And that's, I think, a lot of what Chappelle was coming from. Everything was a mess, so he just kind of leaned into it. At one point, he tells a story of Christopher Dorner, which when he's mentioned his name, I immediately perked up going, wait, that Christopher Dorner, the LAPD officer who went on a freaking warfare against the LAPD back in 2013 or 2014? Because he did. But I didn't know what caused him at the time to go as crazy as he went. But Chappelle explained it, so that was news to me. That was information to me. But it makes a fair amount of sense. A man who was burned by the system retaliates against the system using their tactics against them. It's a very interesting story. And that's what Chappelle then compares everything going on. It's like when someone in the streets dies, the streets rise up because one of ours went down, and we're going to push back on that. And I think that is very much a noble thing to do. I completely agree with the protests. Not a big fan of the looting and the rioting, to be honest with you. And at no point did that come up really in this whole thing, at least not in current context. He mentioned a bit about the, I think it was, with the riots back in 93, I think. There's something in there. I got distracted for a hot minute because of my kids, but it was interesting. It's eye-opening to an extent. It's refreshing very much. And it really does show you that there are voices out there that do need to be heard. Celebrity, not celebrity, but just people out there who want to hear from somebody else's perspective in a way that comes across as authentic. And right now, with the way that our world is designed, nothing comes across as authentic. Nothing comes across as being sincere. Everything's a package. Everything is put together for the media. Anytime you get somebody out there, I mean, look, reality TV isn't real. I just want to make that abundantly clear. Everything you see from the news is not even really real all the time. It's not raw reporting. It's always a setup. There's always a way that they shoot it, a way that they describe it, a way that they tell it to you. They use conformity in order to ease you into a story that they can do their best bet on to control the narrative, because if it doesn't bleed, it doesn't lead. And that's so true. As I talked about that the other day with the Gone with the Wind situation, that's just where we find ourselves. Oh no, it was the cops being pulled. And now Dukes of Hazzard has been pulled from Amazon TV, citing problematic imagery. I mean, this is the world we're in right now, where instead of listening to someone like Dave, or people who have the raw emotion like Dave, we're more concerned in some aspects of trying to remove culture rather than change culture. Changing culture is a much harder play than removing. Removing feels almost like instant gratification. It's easy. Anyone can do it. Like, oh, I don't like this can of Febreze right here. Let me just remove it. There we go. It's done. Out of sight, out of mind. I've done my part. But the can's still right there. I can still see it. And then later on, I have to deal with it because it's not actually gone away. It's just been removed from my eyesight. But eventually, I have to find it and move it back to where it was, or find a whole new place for it. And that's a lot of what I think 846 is about. I think 846 is very much about the idea of listening to people and understanding their pain and their anger, and then using that as a springboard to actually try to institute change. And that's the hardest part, because we live in such an instant gratification society. It's the change being instituted that becomes the issue. People don't want to take the time for change, which is why we always end up back in the same place we end up back at. Because people will always react rather than reform. And that's a lot of what I interpreted Dave's whole special to be. Now, you can take my thoughts on this face value, or if there's any kind of deeper meaning you're pulling from this, that's fine with me. Some people are just going to say, hey, you're just another white guy with an opinion, and you know what? You're not wrong. I am. But I feel like I learned something from watching Chappelle, as I always feel like I learned something from watching Chappelle. The man is raw honesty, and he doesn't hold back. And to be fair, we need more of that. And we need that to be amplified in a non-filtered, non-mainstream media way, because I think that's how we get to the heart of the conversation. But I always want to hear your thoughts and your opinions. Let me know down in the comment section. I look forward to them. Have yourself a great day. Thank you again for watching. And remember, Black lives do matter. Peace out.